Right, so these are the main pieces, cut out of recycled copper. Was an old water cylinder, hot water cylinder from the attic, all roughly cut out. They're going to need cleaning up on the polisher. So the next job is to get them looking a bit tidier. Get rid of all these marks, the verdigris wire brush marks. Give them a bit of a shine before we start shaping them. Put some gloves on through because they do get quite hot when you're polishing them. A little bit of soap on the wheel, slightly abrasive, that's what cleans up the metal. See how quickly it starts to give it a nice shine. The heat coming through, press too hard, it's very, very warm, very quickly. So right now I have a bit of texture around the outer edge of each petal, just with a cross peen and the hammer. This nice little anvil tool I made up, found an excavator tooth in the woods. Thought it would be ideal for this project. So let's see how this works. Just giving a bit of texture on the outside. Might swap that over to give a bit of a different texture and use that one for folding. So it's giving it a slightly different texture. There's sort of longer, even more even hammer marks. I'm just going to go over this one again to make it look more like that, and it thins the metal out nicely, and then we can be folding that over afterwards to give our petals the shape. So we're already getting a nice curve on the petal. It's just naturally taking the form we want afterwards. We just want to roll this edge later on. So now swapping over to a bit of a softer anvil to work on. Big chunk of hardwood, some grooves cut out of it, and then we can start gently giving each petal a little bit of curvature. Very soft, quite thin, so it bends quite easily, so you don't have to go too wild with the hammer. Just looking for a gentle curve in it, in each petal. So the bigger grooves fit in the different size petals. starting to put the curve in those, we can tighten that up on a sharper edge afterwards. So we're going to start using ball peen hammers now, the rounded ends, different sizes, different petals. And again, just working it into the grooves in the wood, just very, very gently. Because it's not a proper dish, it's a long groove. Just keep rotating the petals round. And we start to get our little cup. Just closing them up. You can adjust these later, just get them all to fit together nicely. So they're all going to sit in. It's very thin, we'll just be able to give them little tweaks. So we're going to want to drill the centre now for our little nail to fit through. So we just put a centre punch in the middle of each one to locate our drilling point. Again, very gentle. And we're ready to start drilling them. So, very carefully, with gloves on, because the edge of these is quite thin, make them quite sharp now. So the central part of our rose, simple copper roofing nail, salvaged from a job of retiling a roof. We want to give it a little bit of a dome, so just on the edge of the anvil. It's very, very gentle copper, lovely and soft. Does work hard and very easily though. With each hit it gets slightly more brittle. As long as you're not stretching it too much, it won't be a problem, not on a small project like this. But you do have to be careful so you don't crack it if you hammer it a lot. So there, we've given it just a little domed top. We'll clean that up and that'll be the centre. So just using a little bit of meths to clean up the copper now and get rid of any bits of polish or fingerprints, greasy marks that might be left on it. Because when it comes to lacquering it, anything that's left there obviously will be permanent and we don't want any marks on it. So give them a really good clean up, getting all the nooks and crannies, just so we have a gleaming copper ready for its finished coat. All a good clean. So starting with our little nail, one by one we can stack the pieces together. That's the wrong order. twisting them around so they sit naturally. You don't want them to sit too flat together. And the last piece on the back, twist that round so it sits, pulls up the joints of the petals perhaps, sits nicely. But what we want to do, take this all apart, give it all a coat of clear lacquer so it doesn't tarnish. We don't want it going dull or green, which copper's very prone to do. So we'll give them a little clean and get them lacquered. So using an offcut of electrical cable, just domestic household cable, it's quite thick, about 2 millimeters, to make the stem for the leaves on the rose. Flattening the ends out, give it a nice surface area to solder all the parts together, give them a bit of shape just so they sit nicely from the stem to the leaf underneath the main head of the rose. And then I'll be shaping up the leaves, giving them a bit of texture, giving them a bit of profile, to make them a little more realistic before I solder them all together. So just putting some flux onto the joints, so when I solder it, it helps the solder flow into the joint so you get a really good strong bond. This is the technique I'm using to fix the leaves to the stem. And then just heating it with a soldering iron, using the minimum amount of heat so it doesn't discolour the copper too much. If it gets too hot, you lose that real nice glowing copper colour. Now to assemble the main head of the rose, I use a 2-part epoxy resin which is specifically designed for metal. Starting with the nail through the first smallest layer of petals, a little blob of glue on the back to hold it, and then you can layer up each individual set of petals on top of each other until you have the complete rose head. And then you can twist each layer of petals round so they just sit together nicely. You get a nice looking, natural looking rose head. And the final part of the process is to give it all a nice coat of clear lacquer, so it'll stop the copper from tarnishing. Copper's renowned for tarnishing very easily,